This is a fraud, deception society. News media is propaganda. Statistics from government is propaganda. You're in a recession. You've bounced in and out of recession repeatedly. You're going to roll into a depression when we have a full-blown spill. Your currency is debasing chronically. The debt is a parabola. That's why gold went up so fast. A government-approved program of surveillance finance, which will be your future social score, your UBI, storing your biometrics. Literally, not just America, I think it's going to be the whole planet. They're building out so big. That's not to say there isn't lots of AI and database servers in other countries. Of course they are, because they're waiting for their specific gematria day, the specific moment, the timing, and everything else. In short, the detonation charges have been in the building for quite a while, and the plunger is there waiting. But there's other things in terms of the financial set in this grand theater that they want done or set up, or they want a particular day to pull it, because there is a spiritual element to this, and days, dates, moon cycles, astronomy, all sorts of voodoo of significance and outcome.
Welcome to Discourse with Christian. I'm your host, Christian White, and today is a returning guest, Francis Hunt, also known as the Market Sniper. Francis, always good to see you. How you been?
Doing great. Glad to be back with you, Christian.
Well, always an honor to have you on, and I figured we'd start off with kind of your latest thoughts as it relates to kind of what's going on in the world, whether it's geopolitics, society, markets, etc.
Yeah, it's not a bad time to be asking me, because I've just literally sent my templates for our newsletter, which we'll be sending out. And there are a couple of things that I've been discussing in there. Number one is the recent AI, too big to fail framing potentially coming in, with the likes of Sam Altman suggesting that government needs to get involved to back the level of investment. And what this sounds like to me is that these guys are sinking untold money into data centers, which is buying a huge, inordinate amount of chips from Nvidia. So we have a lovely merry-go-round of money, and those data centers are being placed often in residential areas that are killing and leading to massive utility bill hikes. So, there was a great joke that actually had the guy with his device going into ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, and why is my electricity bill gone up?" And then there's this huge wall, there's his neighbor plot that just runs for about 40 blocks. And there's this, XY ABC data centers. And he's asking the very thing that's being the infrastructure that is funding the system is asking, why his bill's gone up. So there's a crazy circle of irony in that. And of course, they're actually passing power costs on, because these guys are squeezing or crowding out even home-based usage. And inside of that, they're making these huge investments. So Facebook did some off-balance sheet, special purpose vehicles. Now, I want to warn, this is the trickery of Enron. Put the revenue through the company, it looks good. All this other problem, hey, let's recategorize it, create a stinky, toxic bank type company, and we'll put all the loans and all the capital we're raising to do all this infrastructure, so it doesn't get counted against the company's financials. And the full scale of our deep down investment. And it's quite clear, Facebook, Musk, and Sam Altman, none of these individuals I'm a big fan of per se, are throwing in an inordinate sum. And this is leading to data center farms. And can I also say, this is essentially your future surveillance financial grid. And if you go to a too big to fail type situation, people start asking questions, because there's another point I need to drop in here. Palantir is at about some obscene price earnings ratio, just under 500. It's adjusting now because it's selling off. But you have Michael Burry, famous for The Big Short, if you like your financial movies, as I have done myself, which actually gave a great synopsis and microcosm of the subprime crisis. He's just come out and he's got the better part of, I think, I don't want to say, but 660 million, number might be wrong. Don't quote me. But a large part of it, his entire portfolio, is actually in 2 option trades where he has bought puts against Nvidia and Palantir. So you've got the guy that called and was utter man of conviction that kept doubling down, even though Goldman Sachs was holding out with him, pushing up the margin on him, holding his position, trying to squeeze him out of what was quite clearly a huge winning trade in subprime. You may remember, that he's calling them, they're never returning his call. And then he's out somewhere or he's rocking or rolling, and then you hear the answering. The movie literally ends with, hey, Michael, this is, whoever, lady of some name from Goldman Sachs. Just wanted to tell you now, it's like 3 weeks later, and they finally got back to him after they laid off the risk of huge loss that they were going to have for being the counterparty to his shorting the subprime, which he took the very, very worst. And he'd calculated that you only needed a marginal drop in the aggregate house pricing markets, and he'd literally bought the worst of the worst. He was the only guy who read all the documents, was properly OCD, and literally was getting the welfare check people that had ninja loans and saying, those, I want that. And it was all rated AAA, and everybody was just rubber stamping and the bot thing. So if you can recall that, well, that guy who's pretty thorough and deserves a fair amount of respect, that doesn't mean he's right all the time, by the way. He has taken some shorts on the S&P before that didn't turn out. And he's gone, man, there's occasionally bubbles, there's occasionally things you can do, and there's occasionally moments where you must just sit it out. But he's gone short in a big way on the AI craze. Other headlines, Deutsche Bank is looking for a mechanism to hedge their loan book exposure. And as usual, the dumbest bank in the world, because it was one of those that were absolutely destroyed. Probably UBS and Credit Suisse can compete with them a tiny bit for being the dumbest banks in the room during the subprime crisis, because they were kind of the European brands that didn't fully understand, but were searching for yield and buying all the garbage that was being rubber stamped. They thought they could trust the rating agencies, like, ha, ha, ha. And they are now looking for a mechanism to get a hedge on, which basically means a short on something going down, so that they make profits against the possibility of loans that they've already extended in the AI space. So as usual, these huge banks are always deep in the trough of the new thing, lending to the megacorps, not doing small business support in United States or Germany as a German bank, not supporting XYZ budget and giving them, 25,000 euros and 100,000 overdraft to a local small business. No, they're lending billions to essentially a government approved program of surveillance finance, which will be your future social score, your UBI, storing your biometrics. Literally, not just America, I think it's going to be the whole planet. They're building out so big. That's not to say there isn't lots of AI and database servers in other countries. Of course there are. But America is scaling to such a degree on this. And there's no return on equity compared to the capital investments at this point. And it's very much like Amazon during the .com, you go up to $106 and you crash back down to $6 until eventually you start to get your monetization at some point. And the truth is, most of layman world has no idea what to do with AI. They're using it as a fancy spell checker, or as, in Encyclopedia Britannica, what's the capital of this country? What's, literally fancy search. So and search is free, by the way, with Google. They monetize off sponsored ads. So you've got a very tenuous. It's the big corporates that are going to have to find a way and mechanism to do this. So I don't actually believe that there's that much people that are being retrenched. They're blaming it all on AI. I don't think they're that efficient and that great that everything's being done on AI. I think you're getting retrenchments because the economy is weak and corporates are weak. Just generally, it's a very bad cycle. And we spoke about the hyper-stagflation, our economic model, which says you're recessional, you're heading down. in terms of growth, but you've got a stubbornly high climbing inflation rate because of fiat and debt debasement. So you caught in, and this was further confirmed by, so our view, and that's been our house view now for better part of 5 years since we called the turn, the technical turn in the debt markets in 2020, the tail end of that year, that you're in hyper-stagflation. And stagflation is a unique set of circumstances that most people have had a taste of if they were around in the 70s. But Powell said it. He basically defined it when he did the rate cut that just passed. He said, well, on the one hand, our rates are a little bit high potentially for the job market, but they are also a bit low for our inflation remit. Don't forget, they're supposed to be targeting 2%. That's an increased target, by the way. Wasn't always 2%, it was lower. And you're at 2.7 and trending up, and you're cutting. So, the next big thing, we said eventually they're going to acknowledge recession and weak economy. That's now happened. The next thing, we're bouncing back and they're going to be forced to start re-recognizing the fact that inflation is still here because the cost of living has gone up immensely for Americans on fiat debt debasement. And debt is literally fiat. It's just postponed fiat. It's fiat sometime later with a rent payment. So this whole notion that people think, yeah, debt markets can collapse, but my dollar is going to be fine. No, they're intertwined. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. You can't drown that one baby and not have drowned both the babies. They're Siamese twins. And that's inherently what many people are not seeing. So our macro take is you've got too big to fail risk now because government needs and wants it, but they're going to make you pay for it. How do they make you pay for your own surveillance finance? Well, first of all, you're paying taxes. Yep. But they're going to continue to issue debt, and they're achieving a multitude of things. It's a masterstroke. They're not killing two birds with one stone. They're potentially killing a flock of birds with one stone, because on the one hand, they're having you pay for the establishment of a surveillance grid that's going to reduce your freedoms. One, they have these tech entrepreneurs that are actually frontmen for the oligarchical legacy family money. The Rockefeller clan, the Rothschilds, etc., in the form of Elon, Sam, these young guys that are all such multimillionaire billionaires. Well, no, they propped up puppets. They're smart, for sure. They were chosen, for sure. But these guys don't go bust. And they are too big to fail. ChatGPT won't be allowed to go bust at all. It'll have multiple restructurings if we would have a massive sell-off, but the assets will belong to the legacy families and be used against you. And if you have a too big to fail where they privatize their profits again and socialize the losses, what happens is they'll be forced to do a proliferation of money to help keep the banks afloat and everybody afloat, or they'll let some banks go. I don't know. Maybe it's time for the big one in terms of the reset. Maybe they're ready with their CBDC and UBI. I have a feeling that it's going to be deeper and different this time. But in the meantime, that means they get to do more devaluation of the currency, which is what they want because they want to debase the debt further. And they want to cause the hyper-stagflation, which is the massive impoverishment tool of the masses. It's a massive impoverishment tool. It's a win for the billionaire class because everything they borrowed gets devalued and they own assets. For the middle class, it's very destabilizing. Their cost of living goes up. Their costs go up generally. And government tax takes go down. And it's devastating for the blue collar and working classes because much more of the income goes on base needs, housing, food, etc. So the inflationary aspect, they don't have multi-million pound or dollar portfolios that are 3xing at the same time. So we're in this unique sector where most people, there's a polarization. And those that own the right assets that are going up are going to go up. But I will point out that even the stock market that has been going up hasn't been going up in dollar and gold ounces. It's been going up in nominal normie terms in dollars, which is a massively debasing measure. So we've lost the basis of accounts because everybody thinks stability is the dollar. or the euro or the pound, wherever they live. They think, yeah, I'm okay, maybe a little debasement sometime in the future if you're holding it for a long time. No, in the Ernest Hemingway bankruptcy curve, we've done the slowly bit. We're in the and suddenly very fast stage. And that's why gold moved as fast as it did, because the fiat debasement has been escalating. The debt, the interest payments, it's ridiculous. In 30 days, you've done 600 billion and you owe, I think, 8 billion a day on that. I mean, that's a huge sum. Just a billion, again, 12 and a half days to count to a million if you say a number every second, 32 years to say 1 billion, not 600 billion, 32 years, counting night and day, bathroom, whatever, eating, you've got to say a number every second. I mean, these are big numbers. You don't fix this. You don't fix this. You don't get to chase a parabola. This is collapse. We are part and parcel of collapse. And I want to say something further. It's a lengthy ramble for you to listen to. But right now, on kind of a State of the Nation speech, I'm not even too sure what he came out. Trump comes out, you've never had it so good on your economy, he's saying. You know, we're doing this, we're rolled back Bidenomics, we're going to get petrol down below this, the $2 mark. We are getting this down. You've never, you know, it's red hot. And then you've had Lutnick come out and say the economy's on fire under Trump. And I'm inclined to agree, but not the kind of fire that he's thinking. And then you've had Bessent come out and saying, you know, since Donald Trump has come back, we're winding back this and this. You know, they're all pitching like this is brilliant. And I always say, these people aren't working for you. They were put there by other people to work for those people. They are the controlled handlers, teleprompter readers. I call them the podium whores when I'm in a particularly bad mood, that are there to oversee the collapse. And you always have to invert the perversion. They're not your friends. They tell you what they're going to do by inversion. MAGA, make America great. These are the doomsdiggers. These are the grave diggers for America. The inversion of making America great is, and they're saying, the golden era for America. The only word I approve of in that, in terms of truth. I wish it was a golden era for America. I'm not here to see bad things happen to American people. I'm a regular visitor. 55% of our client base is American. You know, we love you guys. But wow, the fake narratives, the phony narratives, that you've got this repetition when they keep coming out of you and repeating it, and they try to throw some facts down. Oil's going to drop below 2. The oil price is dropping because of a number of things. And that's a very weak economy, a very weak economy. So you've got the repo markets. What else is happening? Now, in 2019, the repo markets had a major wobble round about this time of year, September, October 2019. It was a great concern. The Fed has put more money now into the repo markets in the last week, only beaten by its activities in 2020. And the repo market, why you should care, because it doesn't affect you directly, but it affects you absolutely on a far grander scale. This is the plumbing between the banks and everything else. We did a Substack article on the Cayman Islands, debunking the dollar milkshake guys that talk about, oh, another robust foreign demand for US dollar denominated debt instruments. We find out that the Cayman Islands it's hedge funds that are being leveraged up between 50x and 100x are borrowing in the repo market. You can only borrow 24 hours. It's a short-term lending solution only for a bank from another bank, typically, who just was a bit light on deposits and might have a few more people withdrawing money on a given moment, to borrow for 24 hours, because normally more people will come and deposit. You might have just had an off day and you just needed it for 24 hours. Hedge funds are getting facilitated to borrow 24 hours at a cost in the repo markets and then rolling that every day for 24 hours nonstop to keep a speculative trade on. Hedge funds are not investors. They are not long-term holders of your assets, but right now, they're 37% of foreign demand of US treasuries, hedge funds. That's not a nation that wants a foundation of assets. That's not a major family office that wants some stability and is buying to hold. These are speculators that are doing day-to-day role financing. And what are they doing? They're being levered up by whom, you might ask? Who's facilitating that? Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, JP Morgan, you guessed it, all the bulge bank primary dealers are helping them become the biggest buyers of treasury. And if you can call Cayman Islands foreign demand for US treasuries, that is an absolute proxy and a Ponzi. Absolute proxy and a Ponzi. And the more they borrow, the more stress they've been putting on the repo market. So you've now had the Fed do emergency high levels of liquidity in the repo markets. And why the repo markets? Because somebody will go, what is that anyway? It's banks lending in between each other for short-term, 24-hour basis, overnight only. It's also the plumbing behind the money markets. That cash holding that Warren Buffett has, that's well above 380 billion. He's put that money in the markets, money markets, and is getting, 4%, maybe a touch over, depending on what's being offered at any moment. And that money is being used to repos by hedge funds that are daily funding. Imagine every day you were using a new and applying and getting a new credit card and just to cover your spending for that day. And then you were rolling that debt on that credit card onto a new credit card just for the day. In effect, that's what hedge funds are doing to do the basis trade. And they're shorting the future, which is typically a tiny bit higher than owning the collateral of a treasury. So they're buying treasuries 100 times what they can afford, just about in certain instances, and they're shorting the future. And the future typically comes down and meets the cash market, which is the underlying market, on the delivery date. And it's a very marginal return, but it doesn't always have to do that. So you have a backwardization in the futures market, that whole trade blows up. They don't have the money to back it up. You have another too big to fail system because you have the magic circle of banks and their pipes in between each other, lending to each other. That whole thing falls down, even though you're not involved as a consumer. You're dealing with the same banks when you do a borrowing credit line or whatever. If that goes down, they bail the banking system again. So you have too big to fail now potentially looming on AI. You have too big to fail looming on the repo markets because of highly speculative vehicles being that emergent demand for treasuries, which you've been issuing at an absolute parabola that China ain't buying, Russia ain't buying. And in fact, the scale is so vast that even those that are net accumulating are all slave nations that are going to be collapsing at the same time as America and have committed to be part of the whole Western collapse. So a month or so ago, the biggest buyers in the treasury market, new buyers, was France and the UK, who had both just had their own debt market crises and were watching rates go up. So rates go up, debt ends up going down. That is turbo juice in the collapse. The only asset people will want to hold is gold. You'll have so much fear, you'll initially have a bit of a run into the dollar, and the gold can go down for a short spell. In the long run, it goes much, much higher, much, much higher. And that's kind of some of a snapshot of some of the risks we are facing. And the repo market is the one that cannot be ignored because it's deeply, deeply in the core of the institutional system. We aren't engaged in that, but the interbank lending is very necessary for supporting each other. And if they start to get concerned about the well-being of one of the others, that they don't want to lend to one particular bank, you end up with a Lehman situation like you had in 2008. So let me throw that back to you when you asked what you asked, because there's so much in that you can kick off wherever you like.
Now you unpacked obviously quite a bit here. For those listening who don't know your position on this, how much of what is going on in terms of the kind of the apex at the pyramid of power, if you will, how much of this would you say is perhaps a controlled demolition, if at
100%
all?
controlled
Okay.
demolition. So the outcomes are known of this. The outcomes and the direction of this is absolutely known and certainly clear. And not only is it like that, it's irreversible and it's a mathematical certainty. So I give so many metaphors because it helps people understand. It doesn't really matter what you do from here. You could do the most sound money principle-based things. The interest rate bill, the fact that you are spending twice what you get in, just about, the insufficient taxation, the fact that all this spending has been committed, the fact that you've already got all these unfunded liabilities in welfare, Medicaid that were committed long ago that you can't afford. This is the snowball at the very peak top of the glacier that's been rolled up and is already halfway down the hill, the avalanche, and the rocks and the stones are gathering, and this lump is just getting bigger, and it's halfway down the hill. You know, me and the legacy families built this little snowball at one point when it was just this big and pushed it down the hill, and now it's grown so big it's turned into a complete avalanche. You can't freeze. There's no pause button. The village is getting hit. There's no Superman that pops out and comes and, you know, with kryptonite and comes and holds back everything. The village is getting hit. It's going down. You know, it's the same as the 747 example flown into the base of the mountain. You're half a second from impact. I've got you in a near vertical dive. I can put the best 747 pilot there in the world. Doesn't matter if he turns left, right, up, or down. He's hitting the base of the mountain. You know, we're literally 10 meters away. And it's Inception, the movie, with the car that's gone over the bridge and the people are all dropped down into the lower time frames. It's not a question of will the car hit the water, can it be saved? No, it's a question of will you get done what you need to get done in those lower time frames where, you know, seconds on top is years down there. How much living can you get done and achieve what you need to achieve, get back in the car and accept the impact and try not drown and get to open the door. The car's in the air, it's in slow motion. So it's hitting the water, you know, it's mathematics, it's done. It's jumping in the super tube, you know, which is, let's say we go to one of your best theme parks for the kids and it's a near vertical slide of slippery plastic with running water on it. There's nothing for you to grip. You run and you've jumped into it. If you suddenly decide halfway down, hell no, I don't want to hit the swimming pool. Well, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do. There's 3 people coming down behind you. One of them is 500 pounds. You've got no nails and nothing to grab onto. It's soapy, it's slippery. It's designed to do what it's doing. You're hitting the bottom of the slide and you're going into the pool. You don't get to bail halfway out once you put certain things in process. And there's a lot of cope. Oh, stable coins will be this magical buyer. You know, I think I dealt with it last time when we spoke. Stable coins in their 15 years of existence have bought 100 USDT anyway, which is the largest one, has bought 163 billion, and you're doing 600 billion in a single month, 30 days. You know, we're going to do 39 trillion before this year ends because you're doing a full trillion every 2 months at minimum, a little bit more. So, I mean, there's no catching that parabola. I can start a new snowball after that, you know, that 100-ton one's already down the hill, but it doesn't get to catch the big one. You know, you can't chase a parabola. You can't start late and be slower. You know, the cheetah's already started running. He's running after the rabbit carcass. I can't take 3 days and then get into my lane and think I'm going to catch the cheetah. He's chasing that rabbit and he'll keep chasing a much faster period. And he's started a lot sooner than me. He runs a lot faster than me. You know, it ain't happening. You don't catch a parabola. And that's where we are. We've put things into motion that cannot be stopped. And the people that did that have always planned it this way and spoken thereof. If you listen to Netanyahu's on the future of America, when he was talking in Hebrew to the people that will ask him what will happen, there's actually a video on that. People should go find it. It's getting blanked out. A lot of stuff is getting removed. He says it will be, all the value will be sucked up and it will be a large welfare state which we'll control. You know, it's not a good future. And unfortunately, I can't see that not being largely true. The billionaires will still live in the great places, private security, and be able to fly. Everybody else won't have enough carbon credits or will be offered to buy them for some ungodly sum in dollars that they don't afford and can't afford. And it's a very sad state. The destructive of the US, they'll be shorting it and getting rich out of it, and they'll have all their wealth in vehicles like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, that are multinational they float and shapeshift wherever they are needed. Don't forget, they're negotiating Argentina's debt renegotiations. This isn't a company or an asset manager. This is a vehicle for the wealth storage of special interest groups of long-standing historical significance. And we've given them all our proxy voting power by being buyers of ETFs and not caring. So they show up at the board meetings. They voted in DEI. They voted in transgender policies. They voted all of this using your vote because you gave them the money and you didn't care enough to be a shareholder directly yourself and go to the board meetings and put forward what you saw as a priority. We've scaled them. We let them be the proxy owner of our wealth and have all the power that goes with our voting power. And I'm telling you what they did with it. And you shouldn't be agreeing with any of those policies. You don't hate BlackRock enough. You don't hate State Street enough. You don't do enough to undermine all of these corporations and all that they are doing to destroy your country. And it's sad because they've been destroying the entire West. The only moot point is that Americans won't be the only ones that hit the wall because it's going to be the whole West. But as the hegemon, you're falling from the highest ladder. And it's the hardest fall because you're on a 26-foot ladder and others are on 8-foot, 10-foot, or have fallen over before and are on much shorter ladders like the United Kingdom. But believe you me, they're doing destructive things too. So the message from me has never changed. And it was a deeply unpopular one because it's deeply destabilizing. This is bigger than you think it is. You need to leave. You need to work on your wealth. You need to preserve your wealth. And you need to secure freedoms via multiple jurisdiction-based existence. And I'm speaking to you from Panama, from one of my homes. I've been speaking to you before from the fringes of Europe in Cyprus, Southern Africa, and many other places outside of the West, outside of the grand Northern Hemisphere in case of nuclear war or other wars that go hot, outside of being recruited to fight in an army, outside of it. But I won't escape everything. And the best made plans of mice and men will probably fail. We're dealing with a system of generational intent and planning, but having wealth in gold, having multiple jurisdictions, keeping some not in vaults, keeping some in vaults, but not with banks, with politically significant people. Those are plans that will probably see at least some of what you have survive what is going to go down. But it is absolutely a controlled demolition of intent. And it's been coming. In fact, I'd go so far in terms of the collapse side, we are well ahead of schedule and they're trying to keep it up because they're waiting for their specific gematria day, their specific moment, the timing, and everything else. In short, the detonation charges have been in the building for quite a while and the plunger is there waiting. But there's other things in terms of the financial set in this grand theater that they want done or set up, or they want a particular day to pull it, because there is a spiritual element to this, and days, dates, moon cycles, astronomy, all sorts of voodoo of significance and outcome that goes along with Talmudic and Kabbalistic ritual is also part of the equation. There's a spiritual element to it. But we're at the end of losing the monopoly game. You know, the bank has already got all the most expensive streets and owns the hotel, and you can't help but stop and get a tax on him. Apart from becoming more nomadic, becoming light on your feet, leaving the country, and being a man of many countries, but of none of them. And that's what we help people do. So yeah, it's controlled demolition of intent.
As it relates to, you mentioned, basically elements. I mean, there's a number of things that you that you talked about. One of the things I want to comment on is you mentioned about gematria and also kind of the esoteric components to the people who are really at the top, of the apex of power, if you will. And it is so interesting how I feel like it's entered more of the discourse. That Professor Zhang, that predictive history, he's been talking about it, and a number of other people have, and it's striking how much how little unsurprising that the general population is not aware that a lot of the people behind, above the politicians, behind the BIS and City of London are into the occult. They're really into that stuff. They're obsessed with it. Like
And
certain dates
occultic
and
practice goes
times.
a lot in hand with doing quite a lot of harm, often to young people. It can be sacrificial, it can be abuse, it can be many things. There's very few of the occultic practices that doesn't have some element of that. And many people that are in the lower levels of Freemasonry think it's a benign Rotary Club with pals and meetup groups like a thing. And they just haven't got high enough to know the fullness of how that is captured. And, when I go to the States, certain areas, I was surprised by how in the face masonry was. I was in St. Louis. Wow. First of all, you just look at the arch over the water and the two government buildings over there. I mean, I literally took a picture of it. Literally, you could have called it Boaz and Joachim, right there, and the arch over it with the sky and all of it. They do right down to, when they do town planning for a new city. These things are planned. They actually get the compass and the geometric triangle out, and these things are not random. It doesn't just sprawl right through that. So it's unbelievable. As you say, there's a lot of the slightly more dark voodoo stuff. I focus on financial, technical markets, and I found it impossible not to, once you chase all the rabbits down to the end, not to get into all sorts of other topics of planning, control, intent, voodooisms, occultic practices. And Kabbalism is almost based on you have to become entirely evil to fully understand what it is to be good. And I mean, that's a perverse notion if ever I've heard one. We were talking about the Israeli settlers, the video that I was watching where they were going into some Palestinian guy's farm that they were raiding and slaughtering the animals, killing them for fun and picking up lambs and smashing them and poking their eyes out with knives whilst with balaclavas on. And in the Talmud, it actually says, not only should they be slaughtered, their wives, they should be slaughtered, the skulls of babies should be smashed on the rock, and their animals. And here were balaclavaed up people actually throwing a baby lamb on the ground and just leaving it limp, dead, and bleeding out of its face, and then picking up sheep with knives in its face. It's unwatchable stuff. And I think, what level of brainwash do you have to have gone to be thinking that you are enacting great work whilst doing something like that? It is beyond repulsive and evil to project like that. But they feast on vampirical feast in the absolute tawdriness of the act. You've got to have a different kind of wiring and a heck of a brainwashing to actually go ahead and do that. And we're talking about the lady is actually being chased down in Israel, who leaked the video of them all queuing and protecting a group of people doing man rape on someone that literally ripped his rectum apart. I mean, it's so repulsive that you almost feel embarrassed bringing it up to discuss. But there are actually people that systemically an entire IDF, and then the civilians came and demanded their right when there was, disciplinary called, and that they should be let. And the guy who did it is being paraded as a hero in his home nation. And the woman who leaked it is being hunted down and has resigned from a job. So the one person who had a segment of soul and said, my goodness, this is repulsive, it needs to get out what's going on here, is in her own country, a marked woman. And this guy with his big smirk, who's literally a man rapist, who's quite happy to get on with the act and have everyone else with shields hide it from the camera. I mean, the depravity is beyond me. It is beyond me in what deals there. So, those people are not your friends. Please understand, those people are not your friends. You're looking the devil in the eye right there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on that front. And if I might ask, and I don't know if you need to make a hard stop right now and such, Francis, but as it relates to that, if I might ask, with your when you started getting involved in finance, when trading, years ago, I mean, I imagine, as you are trying to better understand the nature of the monetary system and such, that invariably, you encounter this stuff. You want to understand, power structures. You want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Then you encounter some of these ghastly acts and such. Was that kind of your genesis that you became kind of a more awakened, or if I might use a term, red pilled?
I was inherently skeptic about the bent nature and these Chinese walls and this true everybody has the equal shot. Humanity is not benign and it is not known. The best part of humanity is fair, but the people at the top who are the most psychotic are the most monopolist. Competition is sin, is Rockefeller's saying. And I was very familiar with Rockefeller. He eliminated competition. He wants monopolies. I thought Warren Buffett was a hero. I found out that he sought out monopolies. When he says you want to own the only bridge across the river, that's for pricing power. These aren't people that are for competition. They aren't for other people competing and a higher service and grade. They want absolute dominance. And now the biggest problem is having established various corporations they control, which have extreme dominance. Google has extreme dominance. How the Alphabet Google hasn't been broken up a million times over into tiny little pieces. When you talk about Android, YouTube, they're the second biggest, Google, the biggest search engine, Android, and their massive scale in terms of AI, all of these are oligarchical corporations that are being controlled by the legacy families. They want monopolies. They pretend that they're fighting with each other. Musk will frenemy enemy Bill Gates and Sam Altman and whomever. They all have these mock fights about how they, we are better. We want to be better than them. It's all theater. You're being sold theater everywhere. You're being sold theater everywhere. People are having different styles of execution to bring in a grid, and the people that are doing something slightly better move further ahead. Bill Gates bought a browser, and then Google were just doing it a bit better. So they got backed and got to do search when Gates was, operating systems and got control of all the computers and Windows. So they just backed four horses that they all control and own. And then they just keep putting more of the money behind the one that's executing the best. And then they take the three that didn't win and let them be leading roles in something else. Your one internet world company, Rockefeller was famous. He didn't even want you to get your wages. He wanted that money back. He made these miners. And originally, he paid his miners in vouchers that they could only spend in his stores that they were captive to live in. Kibbutz communism. He didn't even give them money. He gave them Rockefeller vouchers for expenditure in the stores that he used to get the credits back. They gave them their life, their hours, their time. They went underground. They did everything. They got oil on their hands. They were doing everything. He didn't even want to give them actual fiat. He paid them in vouchers until it was forced on him. And he wanted the stores, only his stores that took the vouchers, to take him all back. It's obscene. And you wonder what they want with UBI and all of that and social scoring. They want to control where you shop and how you shop and whether you're a good boy or a bad boy, just like Rockefeller was doing. I don't even want to give you money. I don't even want to do that. I'll just put a piece of paper and I'll let you have certain items to the value of in my stores only. They captured the whole loop. This is such monopolism. He used press gans, violence, and murder, and then control on the railways through the Rothschilds to secure his dominance. That's why they had such a problem. And Bernays came up and the foundation of PR, where he started walking around as an old man giving children pennies. It's the politician's trick that's now become a standard of hugging babies, to be personable and human, because you're dealing with lizards. He looks like a lizard as an old man and a young man all the way through. He looked reptilian to me. But I mean, the point of this, Bernays was the original PR. And diamonds are absolutely worthless, and marketing, the great marketing, diamonds are forever. These people are selling you colored stones as valuable assets, and they're selling other people Bitcoin, an NSA creation that I'm almost 100%, I'll never say 100%, but to the 99 percentile, certain is an NSA creation from How to Make a Mint, the 1996 paper. And the imaginary Japanese friend that disappeared, didn't want his awards, won't touch his block. Here's a prediction. BlackRock or one of those status corporations like it assumes control over the Satoshi wallet at some point in the future and says, we will do custody for it. It's been a long time. No Bitcoin has been moved. We gave an ultimatum. He didn't do it in a certain time. He's probably dead or gone. His family haven't claimed it. We will do custody for it, and it will be used for a more equitable society to protect against climate change, because you're talking about Larry Finkelstein, and the BitRockers are all yay ETF now, when they used to be pro-liberty, pro-freedom, be your own central bank. Now your big star is Larry Fink, who's buggering off to be the backup World Economic Forum head after Schwab got thrown out. I mean, the capture, you've got to understand, people have to understand. You're working against demonic forces that have confused you about your history and have been pulling the same tricks for multitudes of generations. You think you're facing a new challenge. It's the same hustle they pulled before. Read your history. It was great to see that you were reading the Eastern Front, because that leads into the Bolshevik Revolution, Stalin and how he got into power, who backed him, Warburg, how the German Warburg and the American Warburg brothers in central banking and were arranging the finance. And of course, Prescott Bush, that was selling arms to the German side, and the other American companies to the British and Allies side. All the enrichment out of warfare, all the tales, everything. The attack on the USS Liberty done by the Israelis with LBJ after he'd conspired and worked with the you-know-who's to destroy Kennedy. I mean, it's absolutely... The capture is not new. It's not new. So don't be sad now that you think it's all happening now. It actually started well before you. You're not responsible for it. You are responsible for getting wise and learning how the game works and doing the best out of your life inside the circumstances you're born into. You're not Superman. You're not going to fly over and stop the big, massive 300-ton snowball of rock and ice that's going to hit the village. You are just a human, but you can work together and form community. In my letter, by the way, I actually spoke of, and this was something that, let's say, something inspiring, because a lot of what I've said is quite hard listen, and I'm aware of that. I'm not here to, turn you into defeated people. I want to talk about this newsletter. Let me just get it up, if you'll allow me. There's one great story. My newsletter is called Vulture Days, by the way. How many of you knew what is a collection of vultures that are circling? Are you familiar with the collective for vultures? It's a tough question. I won't blame you, because I had to learn it. Do you know what a bunch of vultures that circle are called in the collective?
No.
They're called a kettle of vultures, and it's a morbid harbinger of some doom or potential death. And my opinion is there's a kettle of vultures. Quite ironic, because where I am, there's a fish harbor not nearby, and we have vultures circling above us. So I'm always looking for inspiration for the newsletter to write up. And then, do you know what the vultures are? I've done a thumbnail, because I've spoken about tax scavenge mode and how government's going to come for your wealth directly now. The original sleight of hand was inflation and over expenditure to income and debt raising. That's how they were taxing you on the sly, because people don't feel it through inflation. They're going to come for you directly. And I spoke about tax scavenge mode, and there's a lot of developments going on in there. But anyway, there's a separate phrase for once the vultures are on the ground and are feeding, and it's called a committee of vultures, or a wake of vultures. Wake as in funeral. So I love that there's this language for that. And, I didn't know it. And so you do a bit of research and you go, that's fascinating. And you know who's on the menu? you are, and government are the vultures. And tax scavenge mode, we said it's time we wrote up a definition. So you have to do some research. You want to write down what your thoughts accurately and do a thumbnail and an image. And I did these vultures consuming a corpse, which maybe it'll be a bit fun to show you the tag. Because you've got to laugh, guys. Don't laugh at the situation, and have a morbid sense of humor and refuse to go quietly into the night. And I'll show you this on share screen because it's going out in the newsletter. You can see it just before. Let's do entire screen here, and there we go. Get the reading eyes.
I was going to say, absolutely fascinating discussion.
Yeah, and the power of language as well. It's so descriptive. It's such a descriptive thing. Here we go. Now I can actually see what's going on. It's so annoying when you jump between applications there. So yeah, I'm hoping that's showing up a little bit. That's our tax scavenge mode. And the key thing is, it's when governments are being covertly taxing you through inflation, which is basically fiat proliferation and debt-based over expenditure. They spend more than they get in income. What they're doing is you're weakening your currency, and they're making prices go up, and they're taxing you through cost of living. And they then have to, because the debt market has turned and they can't do that debt-based over expenditure to the same degree, they have to get more totalitarian, which is communist, and they revert to totalitarian tendencies, and they have to go new and more aggressively towards direct taxation initiatives. Tariffs are a tax on Americans. Many people don't realize that. You are being taxed for having any imported good. Everything has to cost more, and you are being taxed. It's not punishing anybody except Americans. You don't forget they're doing it on all nations. So China sells a little bit of less widgets, but they're also tariffing Europe. They're also tariffing everybody else. You are being taxed for buying something offshore. That's it. That's what the fact is. And also what they'll be doing is cuts to services and social contracts. They've overpromised and they can't deliver, and they're not getting the income, and they've overspent. And the spending, that interest that you're paying, is to the legacy families, which is a huge premium for them being given the right to borrow your first money into existence, which is not some act of alchemy. Government's done that on behalf of the people before without charging interest. So you actually gave private corporations the unique privilege of borrowing your money into existence. Wow. And that's your Federal Reserve. So you're going to face cuts to services and social contracts. You already well through 600% on your unfunded liabilities. Everyone thinks Japan is more indebted than America. It isn't. You add their unfunded liabilities into their debt to GDP, and you add America's. America is the single most indebted nation in the world. You're not the least dirty shirt in the laundry. You're the biggest, filthiest shirt in the laundry. And the sad fact is you can muddle on for a while because you have a big reputation, but actually you're the big bodybuilder that has been taking the steroids for so long. Your liver is wrecked, your kidney is wrecked, everything is wrecked. You may still look big and hulking, and some people won't challenge you for a fight, but there are smaller nations that are healthier than you. Inside, you are broken and rotten. And I always get this, the least dirty shirt in the laundry. Absolute rot. Absolute rot. The hegemon exports its currency. It's called Triffin's dilemma, and consumes goods. You are the most indebted because you've created the most currency, because it's a debt system you use for creating that currency. And once scope for excessive borrowing is being removed, what happens? Aggressive direct tax initiatives. What's happened in the UK of a similar vein is that you've had Rachel Reeves in the UK say, if you leave the United Kingdom, we want 20% of your assets. So they're finding their own way of squeezing. Now, America, it's a general thing, and Trump sells it like, we're fighting for you, America, and we've got this income in. You paid that income. The Chinese didn't pay it. Now, a lot of people say, oh, yes, they did. They cut their prices. They don't need to. They know what's going on. You're just paying more. And that's how they ensure inflation at the same time. They need the inflation, and they need the weak economy. They gave you the miracle economy, the absolute dream, that Greenspan promised you and said, we have a Goldilocks economy, another use of the word gold. And now you're hearing golden era from Lutnick, who happened not to go to work in Canterfitzderrit on the day that the planes, I don't know, hit the building. Besant, who's seed funded as a hedge fund guy by George Soros, yeah, these aren't the right kind of people that are working for you. You know, he probably takes George's call before he takes Joe Public's call, but he pretends to be the anti-Soros guy and all of this, worth probably $500 million, 500 million. And what's sustaining America? Hedge funds like that which Besant runs, running out of the Cayman Islands. Is that really foreign demand? Look at this Ponzi. It's all Ponzi, it's all rot. And when it gets exposed, when the carcass is opened up, all the tumors will be there to see. And the vultures are circling and they want us. They want our wealth. But they are the financial. They want you financially and economically dead. And your job is to survive this process with complete skepticism of all government and statist corporate entities' role in that. Palantir is not your friend. Elon's not your friend. Sam Altman's not your friend. Larry Ellison, who's involved in a circle jerk of a Ponzi with Nvidia. Talk about this for a second. They announced a deal that gave a 25% pump to Larry Ellison's stock. It went like this. Altman's ChatGPT was going to pay them multiple billion. I can't remember the number. Go and search it for yourself. Multiple billion for servers that they've not yet built, but will need at some point in the future, on revenue that Sam Altman has not yet made, that he's forecasting at some point in the future, on chips that Ellison still has to buy from Nvidia to build, to do. And now everyone's talking about how over-leveraged Ellison and Oracle are. Well, Facebook is dealing with it separately. They have special purpose vehicles. They don't look so indebted, but they're doing the exact same thing. They're just putting it in different companies that essentially can go bust and own and go bankrupt even. You know, it's an Enron story. We're looking at a circle jerk of capital. I mean, imagine I say, Christian, you're a capable guy. I tell you what, I'll buy 40% of Christian white enterprises when you have 10 million subscribers on your YouTube channel, Spotify, etc., and we are monetizing with, like Joe Rogan, you know, we've got adverts everywhere, everyone's paying to get the views, we're doing all of this, and I'll pay you now 100 million, but I don't have the 100 million and you're not the 10 million subscriber guy. But don't worry, by the time you are, I'll have made that money. And we should actually revalue you in lieu of this. And of course, the stock pumped. It's complete manipulation because, of course, the minute people read the detail of the deal, it's all pie in the sky fantasia that if this, then that, if I get to here, you do that, etc., etc., etc. This is just deal news management to create pumps. And who would have been long Oracle and selling on the open after the news was out? 25% surge on a major market cap stock. And now you look at it, if I show it to you, it's closed that huge 25% gap all the way down, because the minute the people read all the deal details, they go, what? I mean, imagine I said what I said. You know, I'm going to pay you 100 million, Christian. Would you like to receive that? I'm sure you might. But those are the conditions. You've got to get to there, and I've got to get the money. Great. Why not $1 billion if we're talking fantasy? Why don't I pay you 100 trillion? It doesn't matter. It's complete chicanery. This is a fraud, deception society. News media is propaganda. Statistics from government is propaganda. You're in a recession. You've bounced in and out of recession repeatedly. You're going to roll into a depression when we have a full-blown spill. Your currency is debasing chronically. The debt is a parabola. That's why gold went up so fast. It's having a technical pullback. It will resume in due course. But if we are at September, October 2019 with repo problems, you could have an absolute panic and a nasty spill the tail end of this year, first quarter of next year, which was March 2020 for the parable of that. Repo plumbing, end of banks, They either let the banks go and they say, we don't need it anymore. They launch the CBDCs, or you're looking at major bailouts. So you're looking at AI as bailouts. You're looking at banking as bailouts. You're looking at the repo market, which has lost all its liquidity, all being supported by a Federal Reserve that is bankrupt, that has very little assets, just the printing press. At what point do people say, I don't want a paper? That's why gold's running. That's why silver will run. We don't want the paper. Weimar it is. That's where we are, Weimar Western world. And yeah, it's an incredible situation. It really is.
In light of time, because I know you got to pivot here. I guess succinctly, so to speak. What I mean, obviously, apart from contacting your great company and such, Francis, what might be the steps one can take to hedge against this as best they can? I know having multiple passports, kind of, not being bound by a particular nation
Residency.
state, if you will.
You don't even have to go so far as passports. The right to reside is in between. And, sometimes you've got to be careful. You don't want to be entirely of a new country. You don't want to cut too strongly an existing slave master and appoint yourself an entirely new one straight out. You want to divorce and then choose your relationships a little more carefully. And maybe now that you've got out of a bad deal that you got into when you were young and stupid, you were actually born into it. So of course you were stupid. Even if you're smart, you were stupid. We were all stupid. We were born with a corporate certificate under our name. Now you choose nations that are small, less bullies of a slave nation, and more offering more for people that have skill sets and value add in terms of capital gains free on your gold, capital gains free on your crypto, capital gains. And that's what we do. And we help people get those structures. And we have a lot of Americans, a lot of Canadians, we have a lot of everyone. And by the way, the exit taxes are coming. The crypto taxes are coming. The unrealized capital gains, all forms of wealth stripping by a nation state that is in a debt-based collapse, that can't use the debt markets anymore to overspend and sustain the political selves, or even meet the interest payments that they owed to the banking cartel, given the exorbitant privilege of borrowing your money into existence, are going to fail, and they're going to attack you. And they're going to use the weaponized media to say, well, and there'll be a lot of anti-whiteism. You did this, you overspent, you bought too much stuff from China. No, no, no. You spoiled the climate, you did that. Western nations are going to be vilified, and they're strongly European. And actually, it's time to leave the West. And many will say, oh, I'll fight for my rights, I'll fight. You aren't turning back the weaponized media, the weaponized law. It's not, there's a massive difference, and you're going to come to appreciate this, between morality and legality. They can make stripping you of your assets legal. They just ride it up. Who's not going to vote for it? They're all Zionist controlled. The ADL APAC stripping locusts are all paying their exorbitant money to the politicians. They're told how to vote. They've got handlers that follow them around to ensure that they stay on side and don't get a bout of morality. Otherwise, they jump off a balcony somewhere. It's a captured, rigged game. Recognize what you can't change and become comfortable with that, and then look at what you can change. You don't have to sit at the casino table if it's bent odds. If they're only paying out 5% and they've tipped the roulette wheel one way that you don't get to see, but it always turns out in a certain way, stop playing. Go somewhere else where you get a freer hit, a better deal. And that's the key thing. And we focus on that specifically for Westerners. We're English language speaking. We have people from all over the Commonwealth, English speakers in Europe, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And we're here to help you through something I've seen coming for decades, and it gets far worse. We will go problem, reaction, solution. And the beginning of these repo markets might be the tremor of the full-blown problem it could be on. Don't be frozen in the headlights. Any action that you've taken is better than no action. Some plans might turn out very effective, and some may not. But you've got to have options. You've got to have optionality. If you're born in America, passport is American. Many Americans don't even have one issued. They don't travel much else. You're taxed in America, your company's in America, your personal tax is America, your bank's in America. Boy, oh boy, that's where some of the hardest falls are going to be taken. You can be stripped of your wealth. You'll be totally reliant, and they're capturing the food supply chain, just like the Bolsheviks went after the farmers in the Russian Revolution, in Armenia, and every other place where mass slaughter of Orthodox Christians took place. The coming communism comes with a baptism of fire and a population cull. And that's the Deagle stats. That's really should make everyone nervous about being in the West. I would like to be the one that helps introduce you to optionality, building wealth, protecting wealth outside, and stockpiling good things that are real money. This is a 100-ounce bar. That feels like real money. I put that over the phone. You're getting no radiation at you while you're charging it in your head. This is the real deal. This takes real proof of work to get that 100 ounces out the ground. It's not some algorithm consuming power, in some sort of masturbatory math challenge, which has no use to anybody. There's a real output. That's proof of work. That 100 ounces, energy has had to be consumed. Skill sets to identify the site has had to be applied. Real mining has taken place. And crypto bases itself on precious metals. It wants to become precious metals while telling you it's better than precious metals. We trade it. We don't trust it. There will be certain things that will be part of our future system that we will be invested in because it will be part, but not because we love it. Unfortunately, they're going to win. There's too many sleepers. There's too stupid people that are participating in the left versus right, the red versus blue, and everything else. It's a mass psychosis, just like the CV19. There is no bearing. They will manipulate with media feed what outcome they want, and you'll just confirm it for them. They'll tell you, tick in the box here, and you'll do it. The absolute loathsomeness of the Biden regime assured Trump was getting in. Nobody really thought Harris would win. It's you're being slapped between a blue paddle and a red paddle on a ping pong bat, like a ball bouncing between left and right, and you're being marched up towards the global synthesis of supposed, capitalism and communism, or you're getting political Zionism, and then you're getting Marxism. You're going to end up with the synthesis of both. We've got to recognize this and work on what makes a difference to you in your life at grassroots level. Forget about the political system. You do not vote yourself freedom in any way, with anyone. The only time you had a half chance at it was Ron Paul, and the media made sure he never got brought into the debates. He was throttled completely. You never had a chance of having him because there were too many stupid people that didn't see it. But he would have been the best president you never had. And who knows, if he'd done amazing things and had a 2-term, he might have even been able to pull up the 747 before hitting the mountain. But by now it's totally gone.
I'm at a loss of words. Priceless information that you are that you're sharing, and I'm confident that someone is listening to this and benefiting from it. I certainly am. And Francis, I appreciate your time. How could people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
For sure. Pop over to the YouTube channel, The Market Sniper. And if you're a trade stroke invest in crypto for the good moments, there's also the Crypto Sniper. We also on X under The Market Sniper, our primary profile, I would say, but also the Crypto Sniper and the Reset Sniper. We are here to help you build wealth, protect that wealth, and secure optionality and potential freedoms in the marching totalitarianism, a planned cycle of lockstep as written in the Rockefeller document of 2030. They want to ratchet up their power and the reduction of freedoms in you. You are being put in a smaller pig pen, 15-minute cities, all sorts of things. The only way you survive that is you secure yourself wealth in a period when they will be taking wealth at a rapid rate. You'll then be able to at least pay the carbon credits to travel and do so many other things. We aim to help you with that. That's our primary focus. I'm messianic about it. I'm doing it for myself and our community members. I'd be doing it for free if I had nothing else to do. Book a call from the links in the YouTube channel. Thanks for having us on again, and I hope it's interesting. And remember, don't be doomed out about this. This is the red pill. You chose to know, you chose to hear. You were born for these times. You get to play a hand. It may feel like it's a losing hand. It's not a losing hand. You get to do what you did. God gave talents to people. Some people had 1 talent, some people had 2, some had 10. Maybe we've been given a 2 or a 4 talent hand. Go and double it and make it a 4. Make the 2 a 4. Make the 4 an 8. Don't go bury them in the ground and be deer in headlights. There's a beautiful life to be had. The best things don't revolve around money. I'm not money obsessed at all. I'm freedom obsessed. I'm liberty obsessed. I'm quality of life obsessed. Healthy food obsessed. I intend to be around to bug them and be a pain in their side for as many years as I can and paying as little tax as possible. That is my revenge, a great life and passing on great messages to people. If you can recognize or align with that, you could be one of our guys. Join our tribe. Oh, one
Love
last
it.
story, by the way, before I sign off, I've
Yeah,
got to tell
please.
you the story on
Please.
community. I'm going to throw it out because it was also in the newsletter. There was quite a dark image that was in the newsletter, and it actually had a noose that was hanging. And the noose was hanging, and let me get the image up. It's near the bottom. And it was from the 30s. It was 36, which was just post the whole Depression era. That's the image there. And there's a lot of people in a farm, and there's a barn, and you can see 2 nooses hanging that were kind of a reminder. And that image, grainy black and white picture, there obviously wasn't too much HD back then. That image is what's known as a penny auction. And a penny auction was the banking cartel following the Great Depression, coming and stealing the land from the farmers who couldn't pay their usury loans after they removed the liquidity. They inflicted poverty on everybody. They timed it with the Dust Bowl as well, by the way, which was fascinating. So there was a massive loss of food. People were hungry, people were poor, and they lost fortunes. And the banking cartel, who were directly implicit with it, this was the era also, Rockefeller, cars were around already then, these kind of bankers. The penny auctions were where the entire community showed up at an auction when a bank was doing a foreclosure on a particular farmer for not being able to pay the usury to. And nobody was bidding for fear of that noose, apart from a few ordained gents that would bid 1 penny. And the bank could not sell, and they couldn't have values attained any larger than a penny. And 1 man would vote for a penny on all the items that were separately made available for sale. And once purchased for a penny, they were returned so that the family that lived there could return to their livelihood, return back into their farm, return to working and producing food and get resurrected from it. And there was no vultures, no scavengers that were getting in on the cheap, because otherwise you might have been hanging from that noose. That's community. That's working together for justice for you among the people. And that is keeping the cartel of orchestrated that pumped and dumped, then took away the liquidity and said, where's your money for paying me? After they've done everything they can do to damage the economic environment. The Depression was totally a manufactured event that led to, by the way, World War II after World War I. And as a result, that's what you need. You need community. You need people that back you at the grassroots level. And this is where you start. This is what we're about. I love that story. If it resonates with you, and you will be part of protecting your peers and standing too, like Spartacus in the movie. We are all Spartacus today. The penny auction is us of the future. Or you will fall divided, you will fall. And that's what we're about. If you get that, you get a lot of what we're about. Thanks for having us on as ever, Christian, and I look forward to the next time.
Francis, likewise, wishing you all the best and looking to hear from you before long.
Absolutely.
Quick ask, over half of you who watch the show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you've enjoyed the show, you're finding value in it, subscribing is really the best way to support the channel. It's, of course, free. It literally takes 2 seconds, and it lets the algorithm know that this content matters. And of course, my commitment to you is going to be that I'm going to continue to bring on great guests, refine those questions. And of course, I'm always receptive to your feedback. If there's certain people that you'd like to have on, or certain questions, or this, that, and the other that you'd like to have as part of the show going forward, things of that nature, please let me know. I'm pretty easy to access. And anyhow, that's my commitment to you. If you can subscribe, that would mean a lot. Thanks.